That night, I set my alarm for 5 a.m., the cold December air already biting at my skin before I even left the warmth of my blankets. By 5:30 a.m., I was rushing toward the sumo counter, steam rising from my breath in the early morning fog. I had everything ready, my phone fully charged, my earpieces in my pocket, and that precious scrap of paper, ticket number 6. In the world of Nagaland travel, seat 6 is the holy grail of comfort. There's a unique magic to these journeys, the strange, fleeting intimacy of being packed into a metal box with strangers, our lives intersecting for a few bumpy hours on the winding roads. I was the first to climb in. I settled back, plugged in my earpieces, and let the ethereal voice of Eva Cassidy's Songbird drown out the world. Then, an elderly couple approached. The man leaned in, his hand resting gently on my shoulder with a fatherly warmth. "Young man," he asked with a soft smile, "is this your seat?" "Yes, it is," I replied. He hesitated, then gestured to his wife. Could you perhaps exchange seats with her?" "Is everything okay?" I asked, concerned. The old woman looked at me, her eyes weary but kind. She whispered, "My body is not well." Without a second thought, I moved to seat 4, just between seat number 3 and 5, tucked right next to them. Back then, we had a total of 10 travelers in a sumo. Soon, the sumo was a microcosm of life. An Angami man heading to Mokokchung for work, a young lady returning to the embrace of her family, and a father with his 9-year-old son, the boy's eyes dancing with the excitement of meeting his grandparents for the first time in 20 years. And then there was the man in the corner, bruised and silent, a shadowed presence in our cabin. As we left Woka after a quick meal, the sun began to dip, casting long golden shadows across the valleys. The road, however, turned into a nightmare of craters and jagged edges. Our driver, rhythmically working his tamul, swerved violently to avoid a massive pothole, muttering a curse under his breath. "Look at this," he spat, gesturing toward the crumbling asphalt. "Every year they say the funds are released. Every year they repair it. But look, it's more mud than stone. The money for these roads stays in the pockets of men in white shirts while we risk our lives just to get from Kohima to Mokokchung." The Angami man in the front nodded grimly. "They eat the road before it's even paved. It's not the mountains that kill us. It's the corruption." The driver scoffed, downshifting as the sumo groaned. "They build a bridge out of paper and expect it to hold the weight of our souls. One day, this road will simply swallow a car whole, and they'll call it an act of God instead of an act of greed." The cabin fell silent, the only sound being the violent rattling of the frame. I learned then that the old couple had traveled to Kohima because Otsu was battling cancer. They were alone. Their only son had long ago been lost to the bottle. That revelation hung heavy in the air, a shadow over the music still playing in my ears. As we approached the Doyang bridge, the atmosphere shifted. The man in the back began to murmur a low, haunting rendition of "When the Roll is Called Up Yonder" in our Ao dialect. It felt ominous. I put my earpieces back in, closing my eyes to the blur of the trees. Then the world shattered. A deafening roar of twisting metal. Screams cut short by the sound of the abyss. In those chaotic seconds of free fall, I felt a heavy weight collapse over me. It was the elderly couple. With their final strength, they didn't reach for the doors. They reached for me. They pulled me down, shielding my body with theirs, acting as a human cocoon against the carnage. I woke up 20 days later to the sterile smell of a hospital. I wanted to ask about the father and his son, the driver, the lady going home. But I had no voice. I later learned the truth. I was the only survivor. I was left in a miserable state, broken legs, crushed shoulders, and a soul heavy with guilt. Why them? Why only me? Today, I am back at the Doyang Bridge. I'm sitting on a stone where their names are now carved. We don't get to choose how we enter this world, and we rarely choose how we leave it. But that day, two strangers chose to give their last breath so I could keep mine. I look at the spot where ticket number 6 should have been, and I realize I didn't just trade a seat. I was traded a second chance at life. To my fellow passengers and to the couple who became my guardian angels, thank you. I am living for all of us now.